I'm Stephanie, 30 years old, and a marketing consultant who just launched my own business. Growing up in a wealthy Boston family meant high expectations and rigid traditions. This past year was a real challenge, especially after I left my father's investment firm to start my own company when I arrived at my parents' Beacon Hill home. Clutching a homemade pecan pie, they stood in the doorway with cold expressions. "You are not invited," my father said flatly. Through the gap, I saw my sister Audrey, Uncle William, and even my best friend Jennifer laughing around the table. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how one phone call changed everything that day. The stately brownstone on Beacon Hill, where I grew up, represented everything my family stood for: prestige, immaculate perfection, and intimidation. My father, Harold Matthews, founded Matthews Investment Group 35 years ago and built it into one of Boston's most respected financial firms. In our household, success wasn't just expected, it was the only acceptable outcome. My mother, Elaine, dedicated her life to maintaining our social standing. She served on charity boards, hosted flawless dinner parties, and meticulously scrutinized every aspect of my sisters and my appearance and behavior. A Matthews never shows weakness. She'd remind us whenever we expressed any uncertainty or emotion she deemed inappropriate. My older sister, Audrey, followed in our father's footsteps, graduating from Harvard Business School and joining the family firm without hesitation. She excelled at everything, becoming the golden child who never questioned the family legacy. I, on the other hand, found my passion in marketing and brand development, much to my father's disappointment. "Marketing is for people who can't handle real business," he once told me during a family dinner. Despite his disapproval, I earned my degree from Boston University and reluctantly joined Matthews Investment Group in the marketing department. For 5 years, I worked tirelessly to prove my worth, eventually becoming the director of client relations and marketing. Things began to change 8 months ago when I discovered some questionable transactions. While preparing materials for a client presentation, several high-profile investors had accounts with irregular movement patterns that raised red flags. When I brought these concerns to my father, his reaction was a shock. "Those accounts are handled personally by me," he snapped, snatching the files from my hands. "Some matters are beyond your understanding, Stephanie. Stick to your brochures and leave the real business to those qualified to handle it." That confrontation sparked weeks of tension. I noticed my access to certain client files became restricted. My sister, Audrey, started attending meetings I had previously led. My questions about company practices were met with dismissal or outright hostility. Jennifer Adams had been my best friend since college. We bonded during late-night study sessions and remained inseparable after graduation. My family embraced her immediately, with my mother often remarking that Jennifer was practically a Matthews. She joined the family firm 2 years after I did, working in account management. Jennifer became a fixture at family gatherings, joining us for holidays, vacations, and Sunday dinners. Uncle William, my father's younger brother and the company's legal counsel, had always been different from my father. He encouraged my independent thinking and occasionally defended me during family disagreements. "The company needs fresh perspectives," he would argue. "Stephanie brings valuable insights." But his support seemed to waver in recent months, and his once warm demeanor cooled considerably. The final breaking point came when I landed Berkshire Development, a major client my father had been pursuing for years. Instead of a celebration, my success triggered suspicion. "How exactly did you convince Thomas Berkshire to sign with us?" my father demanded. "What did you promise him?" "I created a comprehensive marketing strategy tailored to his specific needs," I answered, stunned by the implication. "I did my job. Your job is to support this family's interests, not build your personal portfolio," he replied. 2 weeks later, I resigned from Matthews Investment Group and launched Matthews Marketing Consultancy, taking my hard-earned client relationships with me. The family's reaction was swift and severe. My mother stopped taking my calls. Audrey sent a scathing email accusing me of betrayal. My father threatened legal action for client poaching but backed down when his lawyers advised against it. Only my cousin Emma maintained contact occasionally, meeting me for coffee and providing glimpses into family discussions. "They talk about you like you're the enemy now," she confided during our last meeting. "Something big is happening at the company. Everyone seems on edge." Thanksgiving had always been sacred in our family. My mother spent weeks planning the perfect menu and decor. My father used the occasion to reinforce family bonds and loyalty. Despite our estrangement, I never imagined they would exclude me from this tradition. I called my mother the week before to confirm details. "The usual time, dear. she said coolly, 2 o'clock, and please wear something appropriate this year. Her tone concerned me, but I interpreted it as typical maternal criticism, not a warning of what was to come. Thanksgiving morning arrived with unseasonably warm sunshine streaming through my apartment windows. I woke up feeling cautiously optimistic about reconciling with my family. The previous night, I had baked my father's favorite pecan pie following my grandmother's recipe. The rich aroma of brown sugar and roasted nuts filled my kitchen. This peace offering, I hoped, would soften the tension that had built between us over the past months. I spent an hour selecting my outfit, finally deciding on a forest green cashmere sweater and camel wool skirt that my mother had once complimented. My hair was styled in the conservative way she preferred, and I applied minimal makeup, knowing she disapproved of anything too bold. Every choice was calculated to avoid criticism and create the smoothest path to reconciliation. Family is everything, I reminded myself, repeating my father's favorite phrase as I gathered my purse, the carefully packaged pie, and a bottle of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon from my client's vineyard. This small token represented my professional success, something I still hoped they might eventually appreciate. The drive to Beacon Hill took 20 minutes. I rehearsed potential conversation starters during the journey. I would ask Audrey about her recent business trip to London. I would compliment my mother on her table setting, which was always magazine-worthy. I would discuss the Patriots season with Uncle William, avoiding any mention of business or my departure from the family firm. As I turned onto Chestnut Street, my stomach tightened when I noticed the unusual number of cars parked near my parents' home. I recognized Jennifer's blue Audi immediately. This surprised me since she typically arrived with me in previous years. I also spotted Uncle William's Mercedes, my sister's Range Rover, and several vehicles belonging to family, friends, and business associates. I parked a block away and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror one last time before gathering my contributions and walking toward the imposing brownstone where I had grown up. The November air carried the scent of wood smoke and roasting turkey from neighboring homes. Through the tall windows of my parents' home, I could see movement and the warm glow of candles. My heart pounded as I climbed the familiar stone steps. Through the beveled glass panels flanking the front door, I caught glimpses of people gathered in the foyer and dining room beyond. The sound of laughter drifted out along with the classical music my mother always played during special occasions. I shifted the pie to one arm and rang the doorbell, taking a deep breath to calm my nerves. The laughter inside immediately diminished. I heard hushed voices and footsteps approaching. When the heavy wooden door swung open, both my parents stood in the entryway like sentries. My mother wore her pearl gray cocktail dress with her heirloom diamond earrings, while my father was impeccable in his navy blazer and regimental tie. Their expressions matched in coldness. "Stephanie," my father said, his voice devoid of warmth. "What are you doing here?" Confusion washed over me. "I'm here for Thanksgiving dinner. Mom confirmed last week that it starts at 2 o'clock. My mother's perfectly manicured hand tightened on the door frame. "There has been a misunderstanding. You are not invited this year." The words hit me like a physical blow. Through the space between them, I could see into the formal dining room where the table was set with the family china and crystal, the centerpiece of autumn flowers and gourds that my mother created. Every year dominated the center of the table. Around it sat familiar faces, including my sister Audrey in an elegant burgundy dress, Uncle William with a glass of scotch in hand, and most shockingly, Jennifer, my supposed best friend, occupying what had always been my seat at the table. All conversation had stopped. Everyone was watching the scene unfolding at the door. Some faces showed discomfort, others curiosity, and a few, including Jennifer and my sister, displayed something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. Jennifer quickly looked away when our eyes met. "But I brought pie," I said lamely, the absurdity of my statement hitting me even as the words left my mouth. "Dad's favorite." "That will not be necessary," my father replied, making no move to accept it. "We have dessert arranged. I think it would be best if you left now." I stood there, the pie growing heavy in my arms as the reality of the situation sank in. This was not a misunderstanding or a spontaneous decision. This was planned. They had deliberately excluded me and invited everyone else, including my best friend, who now sat in my place. "Can I ask why?" I managed, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I think you know why," my mother said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your choices have consequences, Stephanie," without offering further explanation. My father began to close the door. "Goodbye, Stephanie. Drive safely." The heavy door shut with finality, leaving me standing alone on the steps with a homemade pie and a bottle of wine meant to be shared with family. Through the door, I heard conversation resume. Though more subdued than before, someone turned up the music as if to drown out any lingering awkwardness from my dismissal. I stood there for several seconds, too shocked to move. Pride kept my shoulders straight as I turned and walked back down the steps. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. The walk back to my car felt endless, each step requiring conscious effort as I balanced the now meaningless pie and fought back tears that threatened to spill. Once inside my car, I placed the pie carefully on the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel. Staring back at the house where I had grown up through the bay window, I could see the dining room where my family and former friends were now gathering around the table. A new banner hung on the wall behind my father's chair at the head of the table. Even from this distance, I could make out the gold lettering, Family First. The irony was not lost on me, family first, unless that family member questioned the status quo. The hurt that had numbed me at the door began to transform into something else, anger, not the hot, impulsive kind that leads to regrettable actions, but a cold, clarifying anger that sharpened my thoughts and steeled my resolve. They had made their choice and now I would make mine. I drove away from Beacon Hill with no particular destination in mind, simply needing to put distance between myself and the scene of my humiliation. Traffic was light on Thanksgiving Day, and I found myself heading toward the Charles River. I pulled into a viewing spot overlooking the water, cut the engine, and finally allowed myself to process what had just happened. My family had not just excluded me from dinner, they had orchestrated a complete rejection. The presence of Jennifer in my seat was not coincidental. She had known about this and said nothing. Uncle William, who had always been my advocate, sat among them without protest. The calculated cruelty of the scene left me breathless as I stared at the river, watching rowers glide across the surface. A memory surfaced of Michael Donovan, a friend from my brief time in law school before I switched to business. Michael had specialized in financial fraud and now worked for the Securities and Exchange Commission. 3 months ago, we had reconnected at an alumni event. Something doesn't feel right about some of the accounts. I had confided in him after a few glasses of wine. Large transfers to offshore entities, inconsistent reporting patterns, client accounts being consolidated without clear documentation. Michael had looked at me intently. Do you have any proof, Stephanie? These are serious concerns. I copied some files before I left, I admitted, surprised by my own confession. But I haven't looked at them. Family loyalty, you know, but I kept them just in case. If you ever decide to review those files, he had said, sliding his business card across the table. Call me immediately. Some matters go beyond family loyalty. I had tucked his card away, trying to forget the conversation and the implications of what I might have discovered. Now, sitting in my car on Thanksgiving Day, completely cut off from my family, I reached for my phone and pulled up his contact information. My hand hovered over the call button for several seconds. This single action would cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Once I shared my suspicions and evidence with Michael, events would be set in motion that could destroy everything my family had built. Was I prepared for those consequences? The image of my parents standing in the doorway, coldly turning me away, firmed my resolve. I pressed call. Michael answered on the third ring. The sound of children playing audible in the background. Stephanie, happy Thanksgiving. Is everything okay? Not exactly, I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. Remember our conversation about those files I copied? I think it's time I showed them to you. How quickly can we meet? The background noise on his end diminished as he apparently moved to a quieter location. This sounds serious. Are you sure you want to pursue this? Once we start looking, we can't unsee what we find. I am sure, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. My family just made their position very clear. Now I need to stand by my principles. I can meet you tomorrow morning, he said, 8 o'clock at my office. Bring everything you have. I'll be there, I promised, ending the call. The drive back to my apartment in Cambridge took longer than usual as I took a circuitous route, passing places that held memories, my elementary school, the ice cream shop where we celebrated good, report cards, the park where my father had taught me to ride a bike. Each landmark represented a family that no longer existed, if it ever truly had. I contrasted these memories with Thanksgivings past, my mother directing the precise placement of each dish, my father carving the turkey with surgical precision, Audrey sharing news of her latest accomplishment, everyone playing their assigned roles in our family performance. Had there ever been genuine connection beneath the polished veneer? My phone vibrated with a text message from Audrey. This is for the best. You brought this on yourself. No explanation, no apology. Just cold judgment from the sister who had once shared my childhood secrets and dreams. I did not reply. My apartment building looked particularly lonely when I arrived. Earlier that week, I had decorated my living room with tasteful fall arrangements and a small table set for one. still hoping for an invitation elsewhere or perhaps a friend to join me. Now those decorations seemed like sad reminders of my isolation. I changed out of my carefully chosen outfit into comfortable jeans and a sweater, placing the rejected pie on my kitchen counter. The bottle of wine I had planned to bring to dinner now served a different purpose. I opened it and poured myself a generous glass. My refrigerator contained little appropriate for a holiday meal, but I found some cheese crackers and deli turkey I had purchased earlier in the week. I arranged them on a plate alongside some grapes and sat at my small dining table. "Happy Thanksgiving to me," I whispered, raising my wine glass in a solitary toast. The first sip broke something inside me. Tears came suddenly and violently, years of stifled emotions finally finding release. I cried for the family I thought I had, for the betrayal by Jennifer, for the lonely path ahead of me. The tears eventually subsided, leaving behind a strange clarity. I had been living in limbo these past months, neither fully separated from my family nor truly independent. Today's rejection, painful as it was, had severed those ties definitively. Now I needed to decide what came next. I walked to my home office and opened the hidden panel behind my bookshelf, where I had concealed the documents copied from my father's files. The time for avoidance was over. The documents I had hidden away months ago now lay spread across my dining table, creating a paper trail of deception that I could no longer ignore. When I first copied these files, I had acted on instinct, sensing something was wrong but unable to face the implications. Now, with a glass of wine in hand and nothing left to lose, I began to methodically analyze what I had. Account statements from high-net-worth clients showed irregular patterns of withdrawals and deposits. Investment reports contained discrepancies between reported returns and actual performance. There were transfers to offshore entities with vague designations and minimal documentation. What initially appeared as isolated anomalies gradually revealed themselves as components of a deliberate system. My father, the paragon of financial integrity in Boston society, had been defrauding investors, and he had not been doing it alone. I found emails between my father and Audrey discussing how to address client concerns by adjusting reported returns and reallocating assets temporarily. The clinical language barely disguised the reality. They were misrepresenting investment performance and using new client funds to cover withdrawals from existing accounts. A classic Ponzi scheme executed with the sophistication one would expect from Harvard Business School graduates. More disturbing were the emails that mentioned me directly. "Stephanie's access to the Ferguson and Williams accounts needs to be restricted," my father had written 3 weeks before I discovered the irregularities. "Her marketing role doesn't require this level of financial detail, already handled." Audrey had replied, "Jennifer has helped redirect her attention to the new client presentations." Jennifer, my best friend. Her name appeared repeatedly in email chains with my family, often in contexts that made it clear she had been actively working against me for months. Stephanie mentioned concerns about the Osaka transfers. She wrote in one message. I deflected by emphasizing the confidentiality protocols. "Should we be worried?" My father's response was chilling. "Maintain normal relations with Stephanie while we assess the situation. We need to know exactly what she suspects and who she has spoken with." The realization that Jennifer had been reporting on me to my family, using our friendship as a monitoring tool, felt like a second betrayal, somehow even more painful than the first. I had trusted her completely, sharing my doubts and fears about leaving the family business. She had encouraged me to take the leap while apparently reporting every detail back to my father. Further in the email chain, I found messages from after my departure from the firm. "Jennifer will take over Stephanie's client relationships," my father wrote. "Her loyalty has earned her this advancement." Loyalty, the word that my father valued above all else, had been weaponized against me. But the betrayal went even deeper than professional manipulation. A folder labeled personal contained social media screenshots and photos that at first seemed irrelevant to the financial matters at hand. Then I noticed the recurring theme: images of Jennifer and Audrey together at events I had not attended, their body language suggesting intimacy beyond friendship. The final photo showed them embracing at my father's lake house, clearly unaware they were being photographed. The revelation of their relationship explained so much. Jennifer had not just betrayed me professionally. She had been involved with my sister while pretending to be my confidant. The depth of deception left me physically ill. My phone rang, startling me from my shocked state. It was Michael. "I couldn't wait until tomorrow," he said without preamble. "I started looking into Matthew's investment group after your call. Stephanie, there are serious red flags with some of their offshore accounts. The pattern suggests systematic fraud going back at least 5 years." "I know," I replied, My voice hollow. I'm looking at the evidence right now, but there's more. Yesterday, the firm held an emergency board meeting. Do you know what that might be about? Let me check something, Michael said. I heard keyboard clicks in the background. Yes. There was unusual activity yesterday. Your father transferred significant company ownership percentages to your sister and someone named Jennifer Adams. Does that name mean anything to you? She's my former best friend, I said bitterly. And apparently much more to my family than I realized. There's something else. Michael continued, his voice grave. There was activity in a trust fund registered to you, substantial withdrawals, requiring dual authorization. My trust fund? The one my grandparents had established that was supposed to be untouchable until I turned 35? They can't access that without my signature, I protested. Someone did, Michael replied. We'll need to investigate potential fraud or identity theft. Stephanie, I need to ask you directly, are you prepared to formally submit this evidence to the second other authorities? This will trigger an investigation that will almost certainly lead to charges against your family members. The question hung in the air between us, despite everything I had discovered. Some small part of me still hesitated. These were not just financial criminals. They were my family, my father who had taught me to ride a bike, my sister who had defended me from bullies in elementary school, my mother who had nursed me through childhood illnesses. But they were also the people who had stood at that door today and told me I was not welcome, the people who had conspired behind my back, invaded my trust fund, and used my closest friendship as a means of surveillance. Yes, I said finally, I will submit everything formally, but I need to make copies first. Digital backups of all documents. Good, Michael said. Secure everything carefully. Some of his evidence could mysteriously disappear once they realize what is happening. I spent the next hour scanning every document and storing copies on encrypted drives. I organized the evidence chronologically and by type of violation, creating a comprehensive package that even a financial layperson could follow. The methodical work helped calm my racing thoughts and strengthen my resolve. As I prepared to send the first batch of evidence to Michael, my finger hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. Once these documents left my possession, events would unfold that could not be stopped. My family would face public exposure, potential criminal charges, and the destruction of everything they had built. For a moment, I saw my mother's face, not as it had appeared today at the door, but as it had been when I was a child seeking comfort after a nightmare. I heard my father's voice, not delivering cold rejection but praising my first academic achievement. I felt Audrey's hand in mine as we navigated our first day of school together. Then I remembered standing alone on those steps, the door closing in my face while my family and former best friend continued their celebration without me. I recalled the systematic way they had undermined me professionally and personally, using my trust against me. I thought of the investors who had trusted my father with their life savings. Unaware that their financial security was built on lies, I pressed send. The moment after sending the evidence to Michael and regulatory authorities felt surreal, as if I had stepped outside my own life and was now watching it unfold from a distance. I had also forwarded key documents to Thomas Berkshire and several other major investors in my father's firm with a brief explanation and warning. The final message went to my cousin Emma, the only family member who had maintained contact with me. Things are about to change dramatically for the family. Be careful about your own investments and connections to the firm. For several minutes, I sat motionless at my dining table, mentally preparing for the inevitable fallout. Then, in a strange attempt at normalcy, I moved to the kitchen and began assembling a proper Thanksgiving meal for myself. From the limited ingredients in my refrigerator, turkey sandwiches, instant mashed potatoes, and a small container of cranberry sauce I had purchased earlier in the week, the mundane activity provided a momentary respite from the emotional storm. Exactly 19 minutes after sending the emails, my phone lit up with a message from my father. What have you done? The 3 words contained volumes of rage and panic. Before I could process this, more notifications began flooding in. My mother called 3 times in succession, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. Stephanie, whatever you think you know, you need to call us immediately. This is a family matter that should be handled privately. Audrey's text escalated from anger to desperation. You have no idea what you have just done. This is not just about Dad. You are destroying all of us. Please tell me you can undo this. We can talk about everything. Jennifer, who had not contacted me in weeks, sent a message that made my blood boil. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. I never meant to hurt you. What happened with your family and the firm is complicated, but I never betrayed your trust in the way you think. Please call me. The audacity of her denial after what I had discovered was almost laughable. I did not respond to any of them. A surprising message came from Uncle William. I suspected something was wrong, but didn't want to believe it. You showed more courage than I did. Be careful and don't meet with any family members alone. I'll call you when I can speak freely. This unexpected support from the one person I had seen sitting at that Thanksgiving table gave me a momentary sense of validation. Perhaps I was not entirely alone after all. The next wave of notifications came from colleagues still at Matthews Investment Group. The office is in chaos, wrote my former assistant, Bethany. Your father and sister just rushed out after receiving phone calls. Security is collecting and securing all computers and files. What is happening? An email notification from the company system announced. Emergency board meeting scheduled for 4 p.m. today has been canceled. Further information pending. Then came the news alerts. Trading suspended for Matthews Investment Group pending inquiry. SEC confirms preliminary investigation into Boston financial firm. Major fraud allegations surface against prominent Boston investment company. The messages from my family became increasingly desperate. My father's final text read, "You have 20 minutes to call me and explain how you intend to fix this before you destroy this family forever. Some bells cannot be unrung, Stephanie." I let the 20 minutes pass without response, turning off notification sounds as my phone continued to vibrate with incoming messages. For the first time since the morning, I felt a strange sense of peace. The truth was out, and whatever happened next was beyond my control. I had done what I believed was right, regardless of the personal cost. As I was cutting a small slice of the rejected pecan pie, my doorbell rang. I froze, knife in hand, suddenly certain of who stood on the other side of my door. The digital clock on my microwave showed exactly 22 minutes had passed since my father's ultimatum. I set down the knife and walked slowly to the door, peering through the peephole to confirm my suspicion. There in the hallway of my apartment building stood my entire family, my father looking uncharacteristically disheveled, my mother pale and rigid, Audrey with mascara streaked down her cheeks, and Jennifer hanging back with an expression of abject misery. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and opened the door. "How could you do this to us?" My father's voice exploded into the hallway the moment I opened the door. His face was flushed with a rage I had rarely seen, even during our worst arguments. "To your own family. Do you have any idea what you have done?" My mother stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on his arm. "Not here, Harold," she hissed, glancing nervously at neighboring apartments. "This needs to be handled privately." I stood in the doorway, unexpectedly calm in the face of their collective fury. "If you want to talk, you can come inside," I said, stepping back to allow them entry, "but you will not shout at me in my own home." They filed in silently, my father still vibrating with anger, my mother surveying my modest apartment with thinly veiled disdain, Audrey unable to meet my eyes, and Jennifer lingering awkwardly near the door. As if planning a quick escape, I noticed Uncle William was not with them. "Sit down if you want," I offered, gesturing to my living room furniture. None of them moved. "You need to retract everything immediately," my father demanded, his voice slightly lower but no less intense. "Call your contact at the SEC and tell them it was a mistake. We can still contain this if we act quickly." "Retract the truth?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Retract documented evidence of fraud, misappropriation of funds, and identity theft?" "I don't think that's possible, Dad." "You don't understand what you're talking about," my mother interjected, her social mask slipping to reveal genuine fear. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation? To our standing in the community, every charity board, every social connection, everything we have built over decades destroyed because you couldn't follow simple family loyalty." "Loyalty," I repeated the word, tasting its bitterness. "Was it loyalty when you accessed my trust fund without authorization? Was it loyalty when you excluded me from Thanksgiving while welcoming the woman who betrayed me? Please explain your definition of loyalty, because it seems to only work in one direction." Audrey finally spoke, her voice cracking. "You don't understand the pressure," she said, sinking onto my couch uninvited. "Dad needed certain returns to keep major clients. When the market turned against us in 2019, we had to make adjustments just to keep the firm afloat. It started small, just temporary reallocations, then it grew." "Don't say another word, Audrey," my father snapped. "She's probably recording this entire conversation." I almost laughed at his paranoia. "I don't need to record anything. The documents speak for themselves." Jennifer stepped forward, her eyes red. "Stephanie, please, this affects more people than just your family. There are employees who will lose everything, clients whose finances will be ruined. There must be some way to resolve this without complete destruction." The audacity of her plea ignited my anger. "You have no right to speak to me about anything I said coldly. You used our friendship to spy on me. You reported my every concern and question back to them. And all while you were involved with my sister. Did you enjoy playing me for a fool, Jennifer? Her face crumpled. It wasn't like that, not at first, Audrey and that happened later. I never meant to hurt you, a movement at the door interrupted our confrontation. Uncle William slipped into the apartment, nodding briefly to me before addressing my father. Harold, they're securing the office files as we speak. The SEC has already frozen the primary accounts. You need to call Gerald immediately. He turned to me. I came to warn you. They are looking for someone to blame, and they've decided it should be you. My father's expression confirmed this assessment. You were involved enough in these accounts to be implicated, he said, his tone shifting from rage to calculated manipulation. If you cooperate now, present this as a misunderstanding, we can protect you. Otherwise, our lawyers will have no choice but to present evidence of your involvement. Evidence you would fabricate, I replied calmly, but that won't work. I've been documenting my concerns and the restricted access to those accounts for months. Michael has the timeline of my discoveries and communications, and I was never a signatory on the fraudulent transfers. My father's face darkened at the mention of Michael's name. So, this is about some man you're destroying your family for. And SEC boyfriend, this is about doing what is right, I countered. Something this family seems to have forgotten long ago. My mother approached me, attempting a different tactic. Darling, we can fix this. Your father can move funds to cover any discrepancies. No one will lose money. The firm can recover. We can welcome you back, restore your position, even give you more authority, whatever you want. The transparent bribery attempt was almost sad. It's too late for that. The authorities already have everything. Name your price, my father said bluntly. Everyone has one, $1 million, $5 million. Your own division within the company. What will it take for you to help us contain this? I looked at him, truly looked at the man who had raised me, now revealed as someone who believed everything and everyone could be bought. I already have what I need, I said. The truth, he scoffed. Truth doesn't pay bills or maintain reputations. Truth is a luxury for people who don't understand how the world really works. I understand exactly how your world works now, I replied, and I want no part of it. Audrey stood suddenly. She's not going to help us, she told my father. But there's something else you should know. She controls the Norton Trust shares. Now that she's 30. If those shares vote with the board members who are already questioning the leadership, you could lose control of the company even without the SEC investigation. My father whirled toward me, his expression changing from dismissive to calculating. Is this about control, about power in the company, because we can negotiate that? No, I said firmly. This is about accountability, about facing consequences for choices made knowingly and repeatedly. This is about all the people who trusted you with their financial futures, while you used their money as your personal fund. My mother crumpled onto the couch, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. We'll be ruined, she whispered. Everything we built, everything we are gone. Audrey knelt beside her, offering comfort while shooting accusing glares in my direction. Jennifer stood awkwardly between groups, belonging nowhere. You never should have pushed me away, I said quietly. You never should have treated me like an outsider in my own family. Maybe then I would have helped you find a better solution. You are dead to us, my father spat, his last desperate attempt at emotional manipulation. After today, you are no longer a Matthews. I met his gaze steadily. I stopped being a Matthews the moment you closed that door in my face. Now I need all of you to leave. My lawyer will contact you about any further communications. Jennifer made one last attempt to approach me. Stephanie, please, I know I hurt you terribly, but you have to believe I cared about you. Our friendship was not a lie. A real friend would not have sat at that table today while I was turned away, I replied. A real friend would have stood up and walked out. You made your choice, Jennifer. Now you get to live with it, just like the rest of them. One by one, they left my apartment. My father stormed out without another word. My mother paused at the door, looking back with a mixture of anger and loss before following him. Audrey hesitated, seeming on the verge of saying something meaningful, but ultimately shook her head and left in silence. Jennifer was the last to go, tears streaming down her face as she whispered a final, "I'm sorry," that echoed hollowly in the room. Uncle William lingered briefly. This will get worse before it gets better, he warned. But you did the right thing. I should have done it myself years ago when I first suspected. He squeezed my shoulder gently before following the others. When the door closed behind them, I stood in the sudden silence of my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a makeshift Thanksgiving meal and the scattered documents that had changed everything. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to acknowledge the full weight of what had happened and what was still to come. The family I had known was gone forever. But in its place was something I had never fully possessed before: the freedom to live according to my own principles, regardless of the cost. 1 year later, I stood in my kitchen arranging a bouquet of autumn flowers for my dining table. The aroma of roasting turkey and fresh-baked bread filled my new home, a comfortable townhouse in Cambridge that I had purchased 6 months ago. Through the archway, I could see the dining table set for 8 people, complete with place cards and handwritten notes of gratitude at each setting. The past year had unfolded in ways I could never have predicted on that fateful Thanksgiving day, when I stood rejected at my parents' door. The Matthews Investment Group underwent a complete restructuring after the investigation revealed systematic fraud affecting hundreds of clients. My father, facing multiple federal charges, ultimately accepted a plea deal that included full cooperation, significant financial penalties, and house arrest rather than prison time. His reputation in Boston financial circles was destroyed, but he had avoided the worst legal consequences by surrendering control of the firm to a court-appointed board. That board surprisingly had approached me 3 months after the scandal broke. "We need someone with the Matthews name who understands the business but wasn't implicated in the fraud," the new chairperson explained. "Your reputation for ethics is exactly what the company needs to rebuild trust." After careful consideration, I accepted a position on the board with oversight of compliance and ethical practices. The irony of becoming the family moral compass was not lost on me, but I embraced the opportunity to help make things right for the clients who had been harmed. My relationship with my family evolved in unexpected ways. My mother still maintained a cool distance, unable to forgive me for the public humiliation she experienced. Her social standing had crumbled, and she retreated from Boston society to their lake house in New Hampshire, rarely venturing into public. Audrey, however, surprised me by reaching out 6 months after the confrontation. "I've been in therapy," she admitted during our first cautious coffee meeting. "I needed to understand why I went along with everything, why I prioritized Dad's approval over basic ethics." Our relationship remained fragile, rebuilding slowly through monthly conversations that gradually became more honest and less guarded. She had found work at a small financial firm in Providence, starting over from a junior position but finding satisfaction in straightforward, ethical work. Jennifer made several attempts to reconcile, sending letters and emails explaining her perspective and apologizing for her betrayal. While I eventually responded with formal forgiveness, I made it clear that our friendship could not be restored. Some breaches of trust are simply too profound to repair. Uncle William became an unexpected ally during the restructuring process, using his legal expertise to help protect innocent employees and clients from the fallout. "I enabled your father for too long," he confessed during one late-night working session. "Standing by while questioning silently is its own form of complicity." He now served alongside me on the restructured board, ensuring the company operated with transparent practices. Most surprisingly, cousin Emma joined my marketing consultancy, bringing her financial expertise and genuine ethical compass to our growing client base. "I always admired your courage," she told me, "even before everything happened. I watched you chart your own course instead of following the prescribed Matthews path." The doorbell interrupted my reflections. Emma arrived first, carrying a bottle of wine and a homemade cranberry sauce. "Happy Thanksgiving," she greeted me with a warm hug. "Your first time hosting, how does it feel?" "Terrifying and wonderful," I admitted with a laugh. "I have no idea if this turkey will be edible." "The food hardly matters," she replied wisely. "It's about creating a space where people feel valued for who they truly are." Over the next hour, my chosen family arrived: Michael and his wife Grace, Uncle William and his partner Robert, my assistant Bethany, who had left the family firm to join my consultancy, and finally, to my surprise, Audrey arriving alone and carrying a pecan pie. "I remembered it was Dad's favorite," she said hesitantly. "But it's your favorite too, right?" The simple gesture, acknowledging our shared history while respecting our new beginning, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Yes, I managed. Thank you for remembering." As we gathered around my table, I looked at the faces of people connected, not by obligation or shared DNA, but by choice and shared values. These relationships, built on respect and authenticity rather than expectation and performance, had become my true family. "Before we eat," I said, raising my glass, "I want to express my gratitude for each of you. A year ago, I thought losing my family meant losing everything. Instead, it created space for something more genuine to grow. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by who stands with you when standing beside you costs something." We shared a moment of silent appreciation before the conversation and laughter resumed later as we enjoyed coffee and dessert. I realized that the painful rejection of last Thanksgiving had been necessary to break the patterns that kept me tethered to toxic relationships and false values. The journey had been excruciating at times, but it led me to a truth I might otherwise never have discovered: that creating authentic connections based on mutual respect brings deeper fulfillment than maintaining superficial relationships built on appearances and shared deception. As the evening wound down and my guests prepared to leave, I felt a contentment that no perfectly orchestrated family performance had ever provided. This Thanksgiving, unlike any before, was genuine, from the slightly overcooked turkey to the mismatched chairs borrowed from neighbors. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family loyalty and your personal values? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to unexpected blessings, and sharing our stories helps others find courage on their own journeys. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more authentic stories about finding strength through difficult times. Remember, the family you choose can be even more meaningful than the one you were born into. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I wish you a holiday season filled with genuine connections and heartfelt gratitude.